So our next speaker is someone who we all know, a regular presenter at our meetings, and that's Bill Samuel. I think, Bill, you are on.
Yep. Can you hear me?
Great. There you are.
Okay.
Thank you again, Bill. I see you got your coat and tie on for us.
Thank you, Tony. It's great to see everybody, especially my former colleagues. I think I saw Mike Reinecke and Marge Tracy and Gail Gratch. Well, you're all my former colleagues, but those were folks I worked most closely with. And I still can't believe that Mike Reinecke and Gail are retired and I'm not, because I think I'm older than both of them. I may even be older than Marge Tracy, I'm not sure. Anyway, it's great to see everybody. I don't want to take too long. I'd rather, open it up for questions if people have them. A lot of you have been through transitions before. I guess this is maybe my fifth or sixth. And I would say the Biden-Harris team has been by far the easiest to work with. I'm more optimistic now than I have been in a long time, at least about our relationship with an incoming administration. It's hard to say with the Senate being what it is, how lucky we'll be with, with the legislative agenda, even with a supportive administration, but I'll get to that in a minute. So the structure we used, and Peg Seminario will recognize this because he helped us set it up in 2009, and we pretty much kept it going for this transition, is we have transition work groups. There are 20 of them this time, covering every issue that we care about: immigration, trade, economics and jobs, labor law, safety and health, retirement security, healthcare, et cetera. Each of them was led by for the most part, an AFL-CIO staff person in the government affairs or policy departments. A couple were led by affiliates, like the teachers led the education work group. And their job was to come up with a white paper, not too long, not too dense, but recommending policies for the incoming administration. First day priorities, first 100-day priorities, and then longer term. The interesting thing about this job always is the fact that you have to start way in advance of the election. So you don't really know whether this work is going to be all that useful or relevant, although it's always useful to have put our heads together and figure out what we'd like the United States government to do to help working families. So we started in July, which is actually later than usual. I think in 2008, we started in February or March, well before the November election. Anyway, they did quick work. Each work group was composed of 30 or 40 affiliate representatives and AFL staff. We produced 20 white papers. They're pretty voluminous. I have them here, and they all look kind of like this. There's a heading, AFL-CIO Workers First Agenda, and it's got, as I said, sort of priorities for first day, first 100 days. And it's divided up into regulatory and legislative. Obviously, you talk to different people about different aspects of your agenda. And then at the end is a personnel page, which identifies the important jobs that need to be filled. So these were done in October, again, before the election, but there was a nascent Biden-Harris transition operation already, so we gave it to them even before the election. And I'll tell you, I couldn't be happier with the reception. They've now given them to their transition groups that have been set up post-election. They've got 40 agency review teams. Julie mentioned one, the USTR team. They have our trade white paper. They've had it for a while. And each of these review teams have met with labor reps, at least once, some more than once. The Labor Department review team has met with us 3 or 4 times to cover different topics. Those of you who worked in previous transitions, I'd love to hear anecdotes from you if you have them. 93 and I guess that's the last one before Obama in 2009. But in any case, it's been a good, very healthy, rewarding process. Just going back a little bit before that, President Trump was asked to serve on the Democratic Party Platform Drafting Committee, which is the first time in my memory an AFL-CIO president has been asked to serve on the drafting committee. The drafting committee is the real committee. It's 15 members. They actually write the platform. The platform committee has like 200 members, and they basically just ratify it. I think Rich, I was a little hesitant when Rich was asked. My attitude is we're not, an arm of the Democratic Party, but Rich, I think, had the right intuition. He did volunteer to participate. And this is a platform that really, like none other, we could have written it. In fact, in many ways we did, but it's very progressive, very pro-labor, very focused on, empowering workers, bargaining, building bargaining power and strength for union members. It's really a great platform. We hope, obviously, the president governs based on it, and his policy papers, his own Biden-Harris policy agenda, really very much mirrors the party platform. We take it seriously. One good thing about having an institutionalist in power, which is what people call Joe Biden, is he takes the institution seriously. So the party platform is serious, promises you make during a campaign are serious, and now he's asked these review teams to figure out how to implement these campaign promises and platform. And I won't go into a lot of detail. There's a lot in there about labor, as I said, right to organize, strengthening all kinds of programs that benefit working families. So that's all good news. On the personnel front, we have given them lots of names. They seem anxious to get more. This administration actually learned something from 2009, where the Republicans were very slow to confirm Obama appointees. Peg will remember this at OSHA. David Michaels was nominated to be the OSHA assistant secretary for OSHA, but it took months, I don't know, 5 or 6 months to get him confirmed. So the non-confirmed deputy, a fellow named Jordan Barrett, who many of you know and worked at the AFL, was put in as his deputy on day one, and he ran the agency for 5 or 6 months before David was confirmed. So this time, Biden wants a lot of strong deputies, assistants, chiefs of staff. There's, I believe, hundreds and hundreds of non-confirmable slots that he would like to fill on January 20th, and they want us to help fill them. So we're working very hard. If anybody wants to come out of retirement, let me know. We probably have a place for you in the Biden-Harris administration. And then the ones that he's named, not a lot. We're very happy with Janet Yellen at the Treasury Department. Happy with the CEA nominees. We haven't heard about the Labor Department yet or transportation, but we're working hard to get people that we want nominated for those spots. No slides today. I apologize. It's a Saturday. I don't believe in showing slides on Saturdays. We do this all week. So I think with that, if Tony, if there's something else you want me to cover, the COVID relief legislation, that's changes every day. So I'm not sure I have a lot to say, other than I think it's very likely there will be a COVID relief package agreed to, and it'll have extended unemployment insurance and some money for state and local governments and schools and testing and vaccines. It won't be a big package. It'll be well under $1 trillion, which is less than half of what the HEROES Act had, but it's still very necessary. People are going to be suffering. They're already suffering, but they're going to be suffering a lot more after the CARES Act programs expire on December 26th. Some expire December 31st, like unemployment insurance, like the pandemic unemployment assistance program, and other things. So we really need to get this done, and we've been working night and day on it. Last thing I'll say is this has been an odd year. This is where I do all my lobbying, sitting at this desk, looking at this computer. It's not the way we were trained to do it. It's not the way we've done it for decades, but this is what we're all doing now. And believe it or not, almost all the congressional staff are doing the same thing. They're not going to Capitol Hill, working from home. Each member may have a chief of staff with him or her, but even they only go periodically for votes. They're not there Monday through Friday or Tuesday through Thursday. They go into they travel to Washington, only when there's business, and they're not conducting a lot of votes. And same with the administration. Most of the transition folks I'm dealing with are working from their homes. So at least we're not at a disadvantage in that respect. And good news is for the most part, we don't have to wear jackets and ties and get dressed up every day and get on the metro. So, okay, Tony, with that, I'm going to stop talking and turn it
Great.
back.
Well, thank you again, Bill. So let's take some questions, comments for Brother Samuel. Raise your hand. Do I see any? Do I see anybody?
Tony, you've got a question from Karen Ackerman in the chat box.
Okay. Let's see here. So Karen's chat message is, I understand there's a new Labor caucus in the House. Any comments, Bill?
Yeah, actually, it's funny the way it developed. There was competition to create a caucus with labor in the title. There was Tom Swazi from Long Island, some of you may know it, Democrat, wanted to create a labor and middle class caucus. He called about that 6 weeks ago or so. And then Mark Pocan, who actually was a former union member, painter from Wisconsin, wanted to set up a labor caucus with, I'm forgetting momentarily, with Don Norcross, I think, former IBW business agent, member of Congress in New Jersey. And there's already a labor caucus, but it hasn't been very active, that Linda Sanchez has been running, who used to run the Southern California Labor Council. So I think they're all going to get merged, which is good. I am not a huge fan of caucuses. They don't really have a lot to do other than hold meetings and bring us in and we have chats every few months. We have a leadership in the Congress, which is pretty progressive, pretty pro-labor. We deal directly with them every day. I suppose it's good to have caucuses that can organize themselves and whip bills and, put out analysis of legislation and that sort of thing. So I'm not against them. It doesn't, I'm not sure that they really mean that they change that much. But Karen, can you respond to that? I'm curious what you think. I know you asked the question in the chat, but maybe you could speak to it.
Karen, are you on? Oh, here we go. Unmute.
By the way, Karen lives about 5 doors down from me, so she could just walk over and chat from my front porch if she wants.
Karen?
I think I'm off mute now.
Yes,
You are.
I can hear you.
Hi, Karen.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't know how to judge this, Bill, because obviously you have much more experience on the Hill than I do. But I just thought that given this environment where you have, a president, Biden now, who, as you obviously talked a lot about, has a progressive sort of more pro-labor agenda, that maybe this would add some impetus to passing some serious union legislation. So I saw it as a positive thing, but I don't have any way of judging.
It's certainly positive. It's certainly positive. One thing I should say, I didn't say much about Biden. I really believe that more than any former president, he believes in building up the collective bargaining institution as a way of fixing the economy, making our middle class more resilient and prosperous. I think he talks about it all the time, not just when he's in front of labor audiences. The night before the election, November 2nd, he was giving his so-called closing argument. And even there, he talked about strengthening the labor movement and building unions and worker power. I don't, as much as I love Barack Obama and liked Bill Clinton, I don't think either one of them, this is sort of top of mind for them. I do think it sort of is, and it's interesting because Biden's sort of a moderate, but that's not that odd when you think about it. The labor movement, we don't really fit in neatly to a category. But Joe Biden is very, he lines up in terms of values with us very strong, very, very well. And the only thing I'd say about the possibility of getting labor legislation passed, having a Senate where you may have 48 or at best 50, I do think a day will come, if we have 50, that they may revisit the filibuster. I think Democrats are going to get very frustrated if Mitch McConnell behaves the same way in these next 4 years as he did in 8 years of Barack Obama. And if we have 50 and we can actually eliminate 60 vote thresholds for the motion to proceed and that sort of thing, I have a feeling Democrats may go that route, and I think we'll support that. It's a little early to say. In which case you could pass things like the PRO Act with 50 votes, with Kamala Harris breaking the tie. So I wouldn't I wouldn't give up hope. 48, pretty tough. Without the Georgia races, it's going to be hard to pass. So.
We got a question from Peg Seminario, and then Jim Snow.
Hey there. Hey, Bill. Hey, Tony. So nice to see everyone. So following up on that, any thoughts, discussions going on, and what is the legislative agenda moving into the next Congress in the House? Obviously, COVID and the both in terms of funding and then just dealing with the pandemic are going to swamp everything, for a while. And then you've got the budget coming along. I guess, and whatever gets proposed by Biden would be key and all that as well. But is there a thought or waiting to see what's happening in the Senate races in Georgia to see how aggressive a legislative agenda is pushed by the House as far as trying to set up a a tone and an agenda, because as we know, back with Obama, it really got muddled so early with everything on the healthcare and feeling like they had to negotiate and have to, take time. And so anything going on in that regard with respect to what's the strategy for trying to move progressive legislation, particularly like the PRO Act or other, pro-worker bills?
Yeah, I mean, I wish I could say that there was a strategy already agreed upon. I think there are a lot of discussions going on, and as you said, COVID relief legislation will be the first thing they take up, even if they do pass this bill, this compromise in the next couple of weeks. And then they've talked about, immigration, climate, labor, infrastructure as early items. Again, there may be budget battles to take on right away, depending on what the Trump administration leaves on the table or tries to take off the table. The last 4 years, the House passed, as you know, Peg and others, 250 bills that sat on McConnell's desk. My guess is they're going to want to return, they want to pass a lot of those again, the $15 minimum wage, paid sick days, the Equality Act, all the sort of bread and butter issues for Democrats, pass those again. In terms of I don't think anybody's thought through the proper order. HR 1, by the way, which reforms a lot of election laws, voter registration, ethics in government. HR 1's important as well. That passed in the last Congress. So I guess I'm speculating a lot, and I don't think they've worked out necessarily sort of what are we going to do on day 1, 2, and 3. Although I do know they are talking about day 1 what the president himself can do. They are writing executive orders right now. He's going to release on January 20th or 21st. And one of them, by the way, I'm pretty sure will be the OSHA emergency temporary standards. In fact, you may know more about that than I do. If you can't say, just blink.
All right. So Bill, we got one question from Brother Snow. Asked you to comment on any plan to restore the U.S. Postal Service.
Yeah, I mean, even this moderate proposal that's making its way through this in the next couple of weeks has $10 billion for the Postal Service. There'll definitely be more once the Democrats take charge, and they're going to have to do something about that pre-funding of retiree health care, because that will free up money that they shouldn't be putting aside for health care for people who aren't even close to being retired. Nobody else has to do that. So yeah, Postal Service gets a lot of attention, more so because of the election shenanigans.
Great. Well, is one more time for one more comment, Brother Samuel. Let's see, who is that? Jane O'Grady. Hey, Jane.
Jane O'Grady. Gosh, I haven't talked to you in ages.
Need to unmute, Jane.
Okay.
There we go. Yes. Proceed.
Bill, can you just give us your view of why we did so poorly in the House, why we lost so many in the majority, and what does a reduced majority for Nancy Pelosi mean for how we deal with things in the future and tensions between the factions in the Democratic Party?
Boy, I didn't want to end on a depressing note, Jane. but I'll take these questions as they come. Yeah, obviously the worst thing that's happened in the last few weeks is the fact that we're down now to a 7-seat majority or
something like
that. Something like that, or maybe less. I can't remember what Julie said. 220.
She claimed 222.
Okay, well that's a 4-seat majority. So that's pretty terrible. I can think of 4 Democrats who we can't count on,
right,
to pass the journal, at the beginning of the session. So that's nerve-wracking. I will say I trust Nancy Pelosi more than any other speaker or leader we've had in my lifetime to make sure that she always has a majority, 218 votes when she needs it. There's not a lot of factionalism, actually. I think less than there used to be, and that partly because as they've whittled down from 240, 230 to 220, the ones who were left are not mostly in purple and red districts. They're mostly Democrats from big cities and suburbs that have gone blue. So there's not a lot of when you were there and when I started, you depended on a lot of Republicans to pass labor legislation because you lost a whole bunch of Democrats from southern states. There aren't any Democrats in the southern states. I mean, very few. So the 222 we have, the speaker can mostly count on every one of them, almost every one of them on every critical vote. It's not where we want to be, but it's where we ended up. Good
Bill,
question.
thanks very much as always.
Yep,
and we'll be seeing you next year. Maybe you'll be a member of the organization by then, but who knows?
Could be.
Okay. Thank you again, Bill.
Bye.
So we've got a couple more things to do. Before I ask our last speaker, Rich Fiesto of the Alliance, to give us a few remarks, Marge, can you say a little bit about Marjorie Wheeler, who served our organization for many years as the newsletter editor?
Yeah, we would like to, as officers and also members of the association, we would like to salute and acknowledge Marge for the work that she has done for the association, the work that she's done through the years in preparing copy and putting together our newsletters. And she's done this for many years. When the association was in its infancy time, it must be remembered that this was an era of no computers, no software, no fancy anything like that. Newsletter work was done as straight typing of all information. There were no columns, no fancy type headings, nothing, just straight work done on electric typewriters. But the cost of the newsletters being printed and mailed out to all members at that time was getting increasingly expensive each year. And it was here where we acknowledge and have to thank Marge for her years of volunteerism in using her own knowledge of producing newsletters that she learned, through her work, and also using her own equipment with which to do it. And she's worked and done this for quite a long time now. So we thank you, Marge, and acknowledge you and salute you for all that you have done for us for what has been quite a while now. And you are the best, and we've always thought so. Thanks again.
Absolutely. Thanks. Thank you, Marjorie. As you can see, we've shifted the newsletter to an email format, but we have given you an option. If you want hard copy, just let us know. And we also have been sending out large print versions. And I've gotten some thank you notes from people who appreciate the large print. So we'll continue to work on that. Any feedback you want to give the officers about the newsletter, we certainly would welcome it. Of course, if you provide suggestions, then the next question will be, can you help us out with it?